Hi everybody, how are you? Just give me a second here. Let's see. Hi everybody, it's so nice to see everyone. Give me just a second. All right. Astrology, policy, yeah. How's everybody doing tonight? It's so good to see everybody. I hope everyone's doing really well. I hope everyone's healthy. God bless. Okay, so just pinned my comment. This is going to be a live IG about Gabrielle, Gabby Petito, and Brian Laundrie. The reason I decide to do these two is because we always wonder what makes or creates such a situation where somebody's missing, right? So I think this is a nice, it's a nice case file to look at from an Vedic Astrology perspective. My prayers with the family, both sides of the family. I pray that Gabby is found. I pray that she's found healthy. I pray that she is returned to her parents with Godspeed, And, I pray that everyone could find peace of mind after the truth is uncovered and after everything is said and done. It's not an easy situation. There's people, children that are, young children that go missing every year, every day, and it's a horrifying situation to be in. It's horrible because you're left with this sense of unknowing, and it's sad, it's heart-wrenching. And again, my prayers to everyone, because this is not an easy situation, not for this family and not for all the families around the world that are experiencing something like this. Okay, so I got Gabrielle's birthday. I don't have Brian's birthday. A little peeved about that. I mean, out of all the freaking hundreds of people that I'm sure knows this guy, no one could give me a birthday. I mean, this is just like crazy. It's crazy. But you know what? No matter. We're still going to look into this situation. I do know that he's born in November 1997. I know that Gabrielle, aka Gabby Petito, is born March 19th, 1999. So I'm going to look at her chart. I'm going to tell you what I'm looking at, and what I really want to bring to the forefront. And I guess you could say, show and tell, right? Is what the dynamics of that relationship is between the two of them, because everybody wants to know and everybody's asking, how is this kid, to me they're kids, right? Because I'm significantly older than the two, but they're young. They're what, 22 and 23. They're still babies, even though they think that they could have a job and be intimate and do adult things. A lot of these young people think that they're really mature. No, maturity comes with time and age. So, everybody wants to know, like, why isn't he coming forth? Why isn't he talking? What happened between the two of them before she went missing? Everybody wants to know the details. Now, I even want to know the details. So here they are. So I'm first going to start with Gabriella. I have her moon in Pisces, and I should have made more notes, but I've just been so busy today. Her moon is in Pisces, and it's interestingly, her moon is in Pisces in Revity, and it's conjunct Jupiter, Mercury retrograde, and the Sun. So interestingly enough, I'm not 100% sure about her birth time. I do believe she's an Aquarius, but even with that said, I'm just going to focus everything from the moon perspective, because the moon tells us about our feelings, right? And that's what Vedic astrologers do when they want to make predictions. They look not only from the ascendant sign, but they also look from the moon sign, because the moon indicates our feelings, how we feel about events that are taking place. And our ascendant tells us the physical things that are taking place in our life, So looking from the moon sign, I notice that her moon is in Pisces. What that tells me about someone is, if you know a moon in Pisces person, they are likely to be very private. Even though they are public, they have a very, very private side to them that they don't disclose. I could attest to that because I have my moon in Pisces. So, privacy is extremely important to me. As much public as I am in doing this, I do love having my privacy, right? And she also has Jupiter conjuncting her moon. So what that tells me is that she's a very intuitive, she's a spiritual person, she's also a creative person, and emotions, she's very moved by emotions because you have moon and Jupiter's expanding the emotional aspect right there. And she has Mercury retrograde, which means that she takes time to think about things. As intuitive as she is, she kind of like processes information, right? Processes making decisions. It takes her a while. She's not like a super active, quick decision maker kind of girl. And she also has Sun in Pisces, and it's not the worst place in the chart to be. It's better than, having it in Libra where it's debilitated. But Sun in Pisces, it subdues the ego. It does subdue the ego, and it makes you think and look for from a more I want to say like more conscientious way of life, right? So we have this placement. She has the stellium in Pisces, and in her second house from the moon, she has Venus and Saturn. Interestingly, she has her Venus in Ashwini. And whenever you have Venus, because you want to look, I want to understand the love life dynamic. So the most important planets I look at to see the love life is where the moon is, where Venus is, where Mars is, and then I look at all the other planets. But those are the 3 planets I look at first. And of course I look at the ascendant, but in this case I don't know exactly what the ascendant nakshatra is. She has Venus in Ashwini. That means, she is someone who loves her freedom in relationships. Also means that, she might be attracted to guys that are independent, maybe a little young-minded, athletic build. It also tells me that, I do see that a lot of people with Venus in Aries, just in general, I do find that they love to have their independence and freedom with respect to relationships. They don't want to be tied down, but interestingly, she has Saturn conjunct Venus, and that tells me that she's someone who appreciates and needs the comfort of long-term relationships, because Saturn is commitment, right? So she wants to have her fun and freedom, but she wants to have it with someone that she could have a long-term relationship with. And I believe that these two together, both Gabby and Brian, were together for about or over 2 years, So that's interesting just to see that validation. The other thing that I caught and I found interesting is she has her Rahu and Ashlesha in Cancer. Now, Rahu is a north node of the moon, and it's also like the head of the dragon. So just imagine the head of a fiery freaking dragon trying to swim in the sign of Cancer. What it really tells me, guys, can you cut it out? You're so loud. Oh my God. So annoying. I feel like grabbing those bullhorns and going, Anyways, what that tells me is she's someone who definitely gets very, 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 very caught up in her emotions. Because when you look at her chart, she has a trine between Rahu and Jupiter, but especially Moon and Rahu. There's this trine because Moon here is 26 degrees, almost 27. And Rahu is 27 degrees, almost 28 in Ashlesha. So, Ashlesha is also a pretty much possessive planet, emotional possession. So there's that trine between the two. So I could say one of the things here that's being indicated to me is that, she is definitely a young girl who's very, who's emotionally driven. Maybe doesn't have, well, not maybe, but likely doesn't have strong emotional stability. It's kind of hard when you have Rahu in the sign of Cancer, and you have that aspect between Rahu and the moon. You see like a lot of celebrities that have moon Rahu conjunction, or trine. It's like sometimes, their emotions will get the best of them, and it's hard to kind of simmer down and come back to earth and be a little bit grounded, So I am noticing that. And that does play that does play within the realm of relationships, because she has here Rahu in the 5th house from her moon, right? And Cancer is what? Cancer is where the home is, right? So, this is where the heart is. So where her heart, her heart, her love, she needs to feel a stability. She needs to feel at home in a relationship, in a love relationship. She needs to feel like she's home. She needs to feel that romance within her love life. Interestingly, also, she has Mars retrograde in the 8th house from her moon. That could, and it's in Libra. That could indicate, well, there's a couple of things I want to say here. That could indicate some issues that rise up, because Libra is all about balance, peacemaker, harmony, love, relationships, and business. But when you have a planet like Mars retrograde in Libra, it could really make it difficult to keep that balance, especially because she has Mars opposite her Saturn and Venus, now within a close opposition. Okay, Venus is 7 degrees, Saturn's 8 degrees, Mars retrograde is 18 degrees. So it's not a tight opposition, but it's still there, and there's still an influence. Something that I've noticed with many people that have opposition between Venus and Mars, regardless of the fact that it's not a tight opposition, there's always this sense of competition with the opposite sex, and sometimes with opposition, it's a challenge for both sides, for both sexes, to be compatible, because Venus is very sweet, soft. Mars is also very strong. Mars is also very dominating. Even though it's retrograde here, it just means it's a more intense thing. And yes, there is a Parvantana yoga. There's this mutual exchange between the two. So there is there could be like a love kind of hate relationship going on, or she might feel that with relationships in general. And yes, also with Mars being in the 8th house, just generally speaking, it could also indicate, violence. It could indicate accidents. It could indicate, sudden events happening and transpiring once that gets activated, which really depends on, what Mahadasha cycle she's in, and, the transits. Moving forward, I wanted to see, okay, so I don't have, hi, how are you? Thank you for joining. So I wanted to see, what can I learn about Brian's chart? Now, interestingly, the month that he was born, Saturn was retrograde in the sign of Pisces that entire month, right? And Saturn is sitting and conjuncting her moon, Jupiter, and Mercury retrograde, and Sun in the sign of Pisces. What does that mean? When you have in synastry, right? When I'm looking at someone's charts and I'm trying to see what the synastry is, trying to see the compatibility between the two people. When Saturn is sitting over someone's moon, it can make them feel isolated. It can make them feel restricted. It can make them feel like they have boundaries. It can make them feel very bound by someone. It can make someone feel also emotionally trapped, isolated, maybe depressed, and then you have Jupiter there, which really expands these feelings. So I would imagine that she, from her perspective, and I can't say too much from his perspective because I don't know what's his moon sign. I don't know what his ascendant sign is, but I do know that he was born in November, and I do know that he was born in 1997. So I can see some things with regards to the larger planets. So with Saturn sitting over her moon like that, it can make her feel very, very tied to Brian, So energetically, I found this very interesting. I also found very interesting because during the month of November, Sun is transiting Libra, right? And it's also conjuncting her natal Mars. That means something very big and unexpected could happen with these two. You know what I mean? Like picking up and going on and doing the van life, that's very unexpected. Her being missing, that's very unexpected. Something really big. And sometimes it could create violence in a relationship depending on what house, right? Depending on what house his sun is sitting in her chart. So anyways, moving forward, I also found very interesting, Venus and Mars are transiting Sagittarius. And like I said, when I see Venus, Mars conjunction, opposition, something that I've noticed is with Venus, Mars, there's competition between relationships. There is also fights, aggression. There could be assault. There could be abuse. I've also seen in many charts of people with the Venus-Mars conjunction opposition, I've seen where some of my clients have experienced sexual abuse. So these things can happen. It's not the case every single time. I just want to make that clear. But these things can happen and have happened, but it's not the same case for every single chart because you have to look at all the planets. You have to look at what sign this is in. There's other factors that you really need to consider. But interestingly, his Venus and Mars are trying to her natal Venus and her Saturn. So I found that very interesting because it shows intensity in this relationship. It shows wanting to be strongly committed in this relationship. And this is probably why these two were together as long as they were. What I think went down, now let's get to the really, let's get to some of the juicy stuff. Okay, so I went back and I started looking at the timelines and I started looking at Gabrielle's timelines in her chart. So when I was looking back, things didn't start getting aggressively heavy for her astrologically until about August 14th. Okay, August 14th, August 15th. August 14th, right? John, don't interrupt me. Like a half hour. Why? I'm doing that. Okay, so I'm going to try to hurry up. If you don't interrupt me, I get it done fast. John, I got to finish what I'm doing. You're going to have to wait. I'm telling you, son.
You're going to have to redo it again.
Okay, I'm not redoing this. Okay, so what I noticed very interestingly is she has a lot of planetary oppositions taking place between August 14th up until September 17th. That's almost an entire month. Now, in astrology, when there's oppositions, there's challenges, there could be setbacks, there could be pushbacks, there could be fights, there could be arguments, there could be a lot of difficulties that you're facing, right? So when she went missing, when she was declared missing, was, oh boy, I think it was like September 1st. Was it? No, it was September 11th when they officially opened the investigation. So when I was looking at her chart here, let me get my notes out, my other notes. Bear with me, you guys. What I think was happening between the two, I think that those two were having some serious issues between one another. I believe that they were having some major arguments. I believe that there was definitely some power struggles between the two of them. I think some of the arguments had to do with their relationships. I do also feel at some point during that time there was a breakup between the two of them based on the astrology that I see here. I mean, she has the stellium planets in Pisces, and then she had all these transits that were happening in the month of August. And you all know astrologically, August was not an easy month. Also, numerology wise, she was in her 9 personal year. 9 personal years is about endings, completions, revisiting the past so you could have closure, So I also find sometimes people in 9 personal years, sometimes there's breakups, and for her, if indeed, for her, she had her Mars in the 8th house, so that also indicates that, some endings, something very big happening, very unexpected happening for her for the year 2021. So let me go over here. Hold on one second. So, hold on. Yeah, so when I started looking back to August 12th, I saw, I guess, 12th for the most part. She was okay, but it also looked like there were some serious and heavy conversations taking place. And at that time, she was like evaluating, her values. She was evaluating her relationship. She was evaluating the way she identified in her relationship, and then comes the 14th and 15th. And around that time, I felt like some kind of information or conversation was starting to surface, and that this was creating a lot of opposition. They were probably having further discussions, analyzing, further criticizing each other. So that wasn't easy around the 15th. And don't forget, around that time, Venus was debilitated in the sign of Virgo. And, when Venus is in Virgo, I mean, a lot of issues and problems with respect to relationships start to pop up. And so there's like this need to want to solve the problems, but it also is a time when, you start to really criticize your partner and start to kind of like look at them in a different way. Not always the healthiest of ways, but definitely start to look at them in a very different way. And at that time, Mercury was conjunct Mars in Leo. So there's like a war of words, and then comes the Sun by the 16th, 17th, and Leo for her is her 6th house, so that's problems, that's fights, that's obstacles. So she had Sun, Mercury, Mars, I would also say that maybe they could have been physically fighting with each other, People do fight when they have the Mars and Venus opposition or conjunction. These people could be fighters or they could be victims, so either or could have been happening at the time. So it was getting very heavy for her, then rolls around, then you have Mercury conjuncting Mars, exactly conjuncting Mars on the 18th. So this is not cool. This is like, in her 6th house. This means that there's fighting, there's a war of words, there's arguments, there's deep discussions. The 19th comes Sun opposite Jupiter, expanding issues. Jupiter for her is in her 12th house from her moon sign, and Pisces rules Jupiter. So she was feeling like she's at a loss. You know what I mean? She's losing her identity a little bit too, because from her moon, Jupiter rules her 10th house, her identity, So there is another struggle. Now, when it really gets heavy, is August 23rd. Venus was opposite her natal Venus, but at the same time trining her Venus. So there's this evaluation of, I'm evaluating my relationship. I'm thinking now it might be best to move on and to go forward without him. So she's feeling not so happy these days, right? Now, when I look back, to the 23rd, that's I think the day, that's when she was leaving Salt Lake City to go to Teton National Park. Interestingly, I think that they made some other kind of stops, just the way the transits looked in her chart, Come the 25th, she's not happy. She's insecure. She's upset. She's down and out. She may be hiding her feelings. Don't forget, Moon and Pisces people will hide their feelings. They'll let the world know, okay, everything's going great, but inside they're feeling something completely different. So I would say that she was probably hiding what was going on between her and her boyfriend / fiance. Now, this is what made me a little bit nervous. We know that she's experiencing this trine between Sun and Saturn. Puts her in a serious mood. She's really evaluating stuff. She's trying to figure out, where am I going? What am I going to do? How do I get out of this problem? How do I get out of this problem? Then she has, on the 29th, she has Mercury opposite her Sun, Mercury opposite Mercury. Now, this shows that there is an external obstacle going on. Something's happening that she can't come back from. you know. And then Mercury opposing Mercury, that has to do with like trouble with communications, not being able to communicate. But don't forget, Mercury in her chart rules her 4th and 7th house. So this could be maybe, you know, her feeling like hitting a wall. But again, interestingly, there was no communication, or the communication stopped as of the 30th, the following day after that Mercury opposition. So the other thing that I found very interesting that I forgot to write was, you know, her mom said that she was just getting texts from her. I could tell via astrology, and let me go back to that day, that whoever was texting mom was not her. It was actually somebody else. I also feel, too, that her phone was confiscated, you know, taken away from her. So that explains the Mercury opposition, not being able to make phone calls, you know. So very interesting. So what do I think about these two? And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I'll answer them. You know, oh, and this is interesting. You know, on the 3rd of September, she has Venus opposite Moon, and then she has this exact trine from K2. You know, Venus opposite Moon, this is like Venus in her chart from her Moon rules her 8th and 3rd house, and Moon rules her 5th house, which is love life. So this opposition here indicates that like nothing is happening, big transformation, you know, big changes with respect to love life, romance. But again, she has these continuous oppositions taking place. Do I feel now, what's today? I think today's the 15th. You know, do I feel that they're going to find her? Yes, I feel that they're going to find her. I also feel that they're going to have information, you know, probably by more further information by the end of September. But remember, all these oppositions, they're continuing to play out, you know. Yeah, up until about the 18th. So what do I think? Do I think that he has something to do, just based on this information, you know, just gauging her chart and somewhat of his? I feel that he has something to do with her missing. I feel that this situation could play out two ways. Either he just left her somewhere, because you know what's funny, when I was trying to tune in to the two of them, I kept seeing this image of her being pushed out of the van, just being pushed out of the van, just being thrown out of the van, you know. And I was like, you know, that could mean him, you know, pushing her out of his life, getting rid of her. I also kept feeling a breakup, which I do believe that they broke up, you know, which is one of the reasons why they're not together right now, you know. I also feel another alternative could have been him leaving her somewhere, and then something, you know, her having to fend for herself, and she could be missing somewhere. I don't want to give any real details as what do I think the ultimate outcome is going to be, because it doesn't really matter. I'm an optimist anyways, and I'm someone who has a lot of deep faith in God, so I like to focus on the positive no matter what. But what I will say this is, I do feel that Brian is going to start revealing information. I do feel that he will be arrested. I also feel that she will be found, and I hope she's found much sooner than later. And I think one of the issues too in the relationship was that maybe he was, you know, controlling a bit, also had some attachment issues with Sun in Libra. A lot of people with Sun in Libra have relationship issues because Sun is debilitated. Sun naturally rules the 5th house. Libra naturally rules the 7th house. I have seen in many charts that these people have, you know, issues with relationships. They could experience some loss of relationships, you know. Also, you know, I've seen I don't even want to. I'll leave. You know what? I'm going to leave what I'm about to say for another live IG video. I think sometimes it's not too good to tell too much information. So I'm just going to leave that for another live IG video. I don't want to say certain things because I don't want to put out negative thoughts, you know, for her family or for anyone else for that matter. But I do feel that she will be found. And if you're anyone that's in the area of Grand Teton or Teton National Park, if you're familiar with that area, I would say keep your eyes opened. Keep your eyes opened. I am not going to answer those questions. I'm not going to answer those questions. You could ask me privately, but I'm not going to answer those questions publicly. I won't do it. So only you guys that are in this chat right now know what I'm talking about. I do feel that there's a lot of evidence at the park that is going to provide a lot of information, clues, I should say. There's a lot of clues at the park that's going to provide a lot of information as to, you know, how her disappearance came to be. Let me say it like that. For those of you joining me, we're discussing Gabby Petito's natal chart and Brian laundry. All right, let me see what other questions you guys got. Yeah, Jupiter entered Capricorn and is now conjunct Saturn on September 14th. That's right. And don't forget, you know, there's a nice, although Jupiter's in its debilitation sign, there's a nice yoga between Saturn and Jupiter. So, you know, Saturn's definitely giving some support to Jupiter. Okay. I'm done. 2 minutes. Alrighty. So that's it for tonight. I'll come back for some other questions and for some other stuff in like about 10 to 15 minutes. So what is it? 9:40. So I'll see you guys back here by 10 p.m. I'm going to save this. Share it with other people, especially for you astrology enthusiasts. You know, astrology-wise, this is the truth. You know, sometimes you can have good matches with people, and sometimes it could be a little self-destructive, you know, and you have to always take in consideration that when you are looking at your chart and someone else's chart, these are two energies that are combining together as one. This could be dynamite. This could be explosive. This could be amazing. It all depends. Yes, I feel bad for her parents and family, you know, but he's not speaking up because he has stuff to hide and he's feeling very guilty. All right. I got to go, guys. I'll be back in 15 to 20 minutes. See you soon.